Hi, everybody. I'm Joy Vernon, and I'm the organizer for the Greater Seattle Tarot Meetup. And I'd like to welcome all of you to our topic today, which is Unfurling the Leaves of the Tarot de Marseille. And our guest speaker today is going to be Hal Weeks. And he's a longtime reader of the Tarot de Marseille, and it's been he studied all forms of tarot, including the Thoth deck and the esoteric tarot and all of that. But his specialty is kind of Tarot de Marseille. So he's going to be talking to us about that. Hal, do you want to kind of introduce yourself and a little of your background with this?
Okay. Well, I'm Hal, and I've been doing tarot since '85. My first reading that I got from somebody was a TDM reading, and it was a majors only reading, 3 cards. And from there, I picked it up and went crazy with not the TDM yet, but just tarot, because I had other like roots from my childhood with tarot, that playing with tarot decks and stuff like this. And I kind of like went overboard and got really deeply into it, and studied all kinds of stuff, and eventually got into the Kabbalah, and more and more into trying to understand the astrology of it and everything like this. But I always felt really, really compelled to dig into the TDM, because it had a gravity to it. By gravity, I mean I can feel its pull. And I decided or discovered that it's because the TDM is core tarot, meaning when you study the Rider-Waite, all of the pips get their meanings from astrology and from Kabbalah. And when you study esoteric tarot, on further beyond that, the Thoth deck, it's overlaid with so many esoteric layers. But what of tarot? What of tarot by itself? And what is tarot by itself with those awesome other esoteric systems unplugged from it? What's left is the TDM. And before it, the Visconti Sforza. And what is that core of tarot? And how can we understand it? How can I understand it without all these other trappings, awesome though they are? So that's kind of what I kept dealing with. And so I just started playing with it. And my investigations into TDM go way, 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 way beyond doing readings, asking questions and shuffling cards and doing a spread and interpreting. That is actually something that I've done a lot less of than just playing with the cards, studying the cards, looking at the cards, laying the cards out in different patterns that are suggested by the cards themselves. The geometry in the cards tells us how to lay them out, and tells us about their own symbolism. And so I'm learning tarot from tarot. And it's been an awesome process, and it's taught me more about philosophy and life, and it's very keyed into the Bible. It's very keyed into history and what was going on in that turn from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance, and definitely magic, Hermeticism, and alchemy. And I think Kabbalah's in there too, actually in the symbolism, but maybe less of that. But Kabbalah fits it perfectly. So it's hard to keep Kabbalah out of my learning process as I study tarot. So the thing that turns people off to it is just what a number of you guys mentioned, the fact that there's no pictures, but there are pictures. They're just not of people. There are pictures of growth and pictures of transformation and pictures of fantasy and pictures of confusion. And these are all things that we deal with in day-to-day life. And they're abstract, yes, but they are relational. And it's exciting to have my inner teacher teaching me about this stuff. Almost every morning I wake up early in the morning and lie awake in bed for like 2 hours while I get this download of information about the cards and how they relate to one another and how they relate to, you know, where is this in the Bible? Where is this in my workaday life? Where is this in my relationship? Where is this in my own life path and evolutionary path across many lifetimes? And it's all there in the TDM. And so I can shuffle the cards and ask questions, yes, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. In this meeting, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm a teacher like all the time. I teach music. I teach music through Zoom, online, to individuals all day long, all week long. And but doing this with tarot, I'm a little bit out of my element. So bear with me, I'm completely disorganized. And find that that's the best way to teach, because tarot is about shuffling. And that's me up here all the time. Anyway, it's a big shuffle. And so we can, I'm just going to start in and talk about some stuff, and you can interpret what I said. Okay, so you all know that the tarot has parts to it. It's got the Major Arcana, and then it's got the 4 Minor Arcanas. But it can actually be split into other groups smaller than that, in that there are the aces. The aces look different than the other Minor Arcana cards, than the other pips. They're more decorative. They're larger. They are like, you look at the Ace of Swords. It looks like a sword. The other sword cards don't look like swords. They're curved, and they have blades at both ends, unless you're using the Burdell deck. The wands also have blades on the end of them, but the Ace of Wands is a club, or it's actually just a stick, like it was yanked off of a tree. So it's in a very raw form. The Ace of Cups in most decks has a temple sitting on top of it, and the water is gushing out from underneath the temple, which is a biblical image. The Ace, what have I forgot? Oh, the Ace of Coins refers to the earth itself, and it has vines. They reach out in 4 directions. Should I be showing these? because it's going to take me, like, I've got to pull them out of my deck. Like I said, I had no plan about where I was going to start, but
Yeah,
the aces seem like a good place.
That's fine.
Here's ace of coins. It has all of this symbolism, which when we interpret it, tells us stuff about the deck, as do these four vines that extend out from it. Because the core tarot, and this is certainly the core of tarot right here, is about four suits that extend from a major arcana, 5 parts. The center shows you the 4 suits and the 5th center suit. Furthermore, it shows you what could be interpreted as an 8-spoked wheel, because it's got the 4 and then the 4 in between. And that tells us about, gosh, time, and the 4, like the solstices and the equinoxes and the 4 points in between. And it tells us about the numbers 1 through 10. How 1 through 10 when there's only 4? Well, that's Pythagorean numerology. 4 is 10. And this is also an 8. And 8 is 10. And I'm going to go into that a little bit with you too. So the aces look different. So that's a different category that we can consider within the TDM. Is you've got the majors, you've got the pips, you've got the aces as separate from the pips, and then you've got the courts, which are also fourfold in each of the 4 decks. 4 times 4. You've got these different levels, and they can have different purposes in a reading. You can separate these different sections out and do different things with them in a reading. I could talk about that. I could talk about let me talk about the 8 thing. The 8 is 10. And I'm going to show you, this is something that came to me early on in studying the pips. Maybe I better just draw it. Okay. So we have a wheel of 8. 0 is in the center. If you know Kabbalah, 0 is like the Ein Sof. It's the big nothing above the everything. And it's also the point. So 1 goes in the center. This is the center of the wheel. From 1, a ray goes out, or a spoke, and then you have 2. This is this is ancient numerology of the line. The ray has no termination till it gets to point 2. So 2 is the other end of the spoke. So you got 1 and 2. 2 plus 1 is 3. And that makes a triangle. 3 plus 1 is 4. And this is a 4-sided shape. 4 plus 1, 5, etc., on around. 6, 7, 8, 9 here, 10 to close it. 10 is 1. 10 is the number 1 again in a different octave, as it were. It's 1 on a whole new scale, and that's the entire thing. So we've got base 4 becoming base 8. 8 is 10, which gives us a new 0 where we can go out again and out again and out again, so on and so on. So this is spoken of in our Ace of Coins. The tarot taught me this. So, the tarot itself teaches us its numbers. The tarot teaches us it has all these different forms within it. Such as this 4-pointed star, which is really 5, because 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 construction of the tarot. The 2 of coins gives us this pattern, which is huge in the Tarot of Marseille. It can be closed to become a figure 8, which is base 8 again. Speaks of the 8, but it also speaks of this figure 8, which we see in the Major Arcana, typically in the hats of the magician and the force or strength card. But it's also a way of laying out the cards and of understanding the majors and the minors by laying them out in a figure 8 pattern and interpreting the relationships therein. I don't think I have time to go into that. But within the card, there's also this pattern that I'm going to show you. It looks like this little snail shell. That form is used again and again and again and again. It's actually this form right here. And it's related to the golden mean. And it's related to sacred geometry. And you will find that form in almost every card in the deck, in some place or another. Here it is up here on the edge of the leaves. Here it is in the man's hair. And I've always wondered, here it is on the magician's table. I have always wondered, and look at all the repetitions of it in his hair. I have always wondered about that form and what the tarot was trying to tell me about that. And it's in this itself. And much is to be gained from laying the cards out in this lemniscate pattern. Here it is on the final card. It's right here. And it's down here. There it is again. Sometimes it has a little ball in the center of it, of its curl. And when I see that, it means growth. It means that it's unfurling. If it has the ball in the center of it, it means that things are going to unfold more. They're not done unfolding. They are in a process of unfolding. Other times, see here, there's more of a ball in the center of it. Other times it's more done unfurling. Here they are in the lion's mane. So it's related to this core thing, which is the core layout of the tarot cards that can be done to a minor arcana suit or a major arcana. The major arcana can be laid out in this way, with the crossing point being the Wheel of Fortune and the Judgment card. And then all the pairs add to 20, which is 2 times 10 or 2 times 10. The only ones that don't add to 20 are the ones that cross into center, which is 0, or excuse me, which is X or 10, and XX, which is 20. That adds to 30. 30 is a reference to 3. 3 being 21. The card 21 is this card. This card doesn't lie in the lemniscate layout. It lays in this spot. And what lies in this spot if the 21 is here? The Fool is here. 0 and 21. They lie outside of the main numbers. It would take me a long time to lay this out for you so you could see it. So I'm going to let you do it yourself. You lay out the major arcana. The crossing point is the Wheel of Fortune, X, and then the double crossing point, XX, which is the Judgment card. Put the Fool here. Put the World in this spot here. And then compare the pairs all the way around. And you'll learn some of these relationships that I'm talking about. There's good numbers there's good cards and bad cards. In card reading with regular playing cards, there's good cards and bad cards. There's the red cards, which are diamonds and hearts, and there's black cards, which are the clubs and spades. And they correspond to the tarot cards. But basically, we want the good cards. We want the red cards. Those are the happy things in a reading. Those are the relationships and the money and the good fortune and the happiness. The bad cards are the tough cards. They are the work. They are the obsession. They are the war. They are the death. They are the discipline that things take. And when we interpret tarot cards or regular cards, the number doesn't even have to enter into it, because we're dealing with only 1 or 2 of them in a spread. You can go to the number, but you don't have to. So there's a number of different systems that you can have as backup in learning to interpret them. For example, less is it less or is it more? We look for a transformation across the pip cards or across all the cards. For example, if it goes from a lower number to a higher number, that's a transformation. We've gone to more of something. So if we're seeing upset, and then we see an increase in the number, we got more upset. It doesn't matter quantifiable how much more. Or if we see a reduction in the number, we've got less of it. It's just like a gas meter. There's less and there's more. If we have money, if we have coins and we're interpreting them as money, there's less money and there's more money. We see a transformation from the space in a card. A lower card like the Two of Swords has a lot of space in it, which allows for more space for there to be a bigger bloom in the imagination within the space. As the numbers
Can you
grow.
pull that card out and show us how?
Sure. Two of Swords. Very simple. Notice that the swords don't cross in the middle. That's the wands. The swords create room in your mind. Two of Swords is a very simple, open space for which this huge bloom is given room to happen. Could be an imagining, could be a dream, could be a very profound, deep meditation where you're very much in tune in your mind. The two cards, I showed you the Two of Coins. There's a lot of room for those coins in this card. But when you get to a higher number of something, say here's the Nine of Coins, there's a lot less room for the decorum. Everything is a lot more squeezed. That's part of the interpretation. Oh, look, you had a lot of room, even if it goes across suits. You had a lot of room before. You had a lot of room to move around. You had a lot of room for yourself to spread out. And now you're cramped. Now you're squeezed in amongst your family members. There's no social distancing. And you're just trying to squeeze out some space for yourself for some me time. That's the little guy in the middle. One way to interpret this card has nothing to do with the number, has nothing to do with what's on the corresponding Rider-Waite image, has nothing to do with what's on the, actually Nine of Coins on the Rider-Waite does have to do with that, doesn't it? Getting some me time. The corresponding trump card, we could look at that. That's another way to interpret. See, I'm going all over the place here. Another way to interpret these cards that have no pictures is to take their number and relate it somehow to the corresponding number in the Major Arcana and pull some of the meaning off of that. For example, we had our Nine of Coins. What's the 9 in the Major Arcana? The Hermit. The Hermit is about getting some alone time once again. So we could pull that piece off of the Hermit and use it to interpret this card. Let's try another one. Here's the Five of Swords. Five of Swords is a 5. So the 5 card is the Hierophant or the Pope in the TDM. The Hierophant is a teacher. The teacher speaks with his voice. And this is a sword card, which is related to words, swords. And so there is an action taking place. And I'll talk about that in a second here. And the action is speaking. The speaking is coming from one center or one mind, and it's being transmitted to another mind up here. So teacher, student. So this can be interpreted as some teaching that you are giving or receiving, and your ability to transmit it clearly or not. Maybe if it comes up this way, you're the one being taught by another teacher. Possibly. So that's another way to interpret these. I also wanted to show you there are evens and odds all the way across the deck, and they are every other number. The evens leave space in the center. And so the even numbers are passive. They're yin. And they allow time for meditation. They allow space for something to happen in, because this space in the center is not occupied. But then when they become active, there's no room for meditation. We don't meditate while we're teaching, while we're speaking, or even while we're thinking. If you think while you're meditating, you're not really meditating. And so the vision goes away, and you're left talking about the vision. Now, this could apply. Let me find another sword card here. Okay, so let's take this passive or this active sword card out. Whoop, my picture is reversed here. I'm going to take this one. I'll be right back. Please hold. All right. I've replaced the active card with another active card from the same deck. Yes, same thing is happening. The teaching is progressing. But you see how it's intensified? It's like more emphatic. So that's a way you could interpret this. There's more like excitement. There's more, maybe more anger, or more intensity to it. And notice that there's less space even than there was before. The more angry we get, the more intense we get, the more systematic we get, the more you lean on a system in your mind to interpret the cards, perhaps, the more you go to systems of numbers, the more you go to systems of Kabbalah, the more you go to systems of this or that to interpret the cards instead of just looking, the more active your brain gets. The more active your brain gets, the less meditation there is, the less peace there is. And this happens with all the numbers, because all the numbers, of course, get more crowded. The more crowded they get, the less room there is for all the delicate tendrils and growth and flowers and whatnot that are in the cards. And as there's less room, look, here's the the 9 of batons, the 9 of rods, wands. There's no flowers at all. They're completely choked out. And this big X is saying, you're blocked, buddy. You can't get through. Here's the passive 8. The passive 8 has a little bit of space for some flowers. A little bit of space. So, it's kind of fun to set aside the pictures and break out of the stale old pictures and the stale need to have the same picture over and over again, the same esoteric, you turn up the Hierophant and you spend 10 minutes saying the same things as you did last time about what the Hierophant could be. Could be this, could be that, could be this, could be that. And then you go on to the next card, and then you try to tie them together. Instead, in a reading with the TDM, it's a good idea to throw 3 cards and try to say what they are in one sentence. Now, it's hard at first, but as you practice it, it gets easier. And as it gets easier, your sentences get quicker. You say them quicker, and they get pithy. And sometimes they're oracular. It's like, what does that have to do with my situation? You end up saying something that seems unrelated, but then as you think about it, it starts unfurling its leaves in your imagination, and you start seeing the connections between what you just said or what you just read and what the meaning is in relation to the question, if there was a question. Oh yeah, I have to stop talking and take another drink. Are there any questions at this point?
I have one, Hal. The one card that you were just showing us, the 8 of Wands, and it shows the flowers. One thing I was interested in is how the stems always seem like they're cut when they're displayed, and that interests me. I think even in the sword suit and in the wands, they're always cut, and it looks like a man-made thing, and I was wondering about interpreting that.
Okay, well, let me find a couple of cards here. Definitely the interpretation is in the tiny details. So little tiny details like that make a big difference. And sometimes you will see, I'm looking for, there's a cut one. Where did all my sword cards go? Where's all my swords? Where's all my wands? Okay. Here, for example, is a wands card. Notice that they aren't cut. They're growing out of a little thingamajig. But in this card, it definitely is cut. And that form, that shape, which looks like a little teardrop, is, you remember how I said that there's certain forms that recur over and over and over and over again in the deck. That's one of them. And it recurs in lots of different places. For example, all the horse's ears are that shape. It looks like a little teardrop. The bottom of the cut Ace of Wands. Don't you wish you could just like tap the deck and the card that you're looking for would come? Look at the Ace of Wands. The Ace of Batons. Because it's not a wand. It's a club, if it's anything. It appears on each of the cut surfaces. And then up here, it's really emphasized. Hodorovsky says that this is the feminine part of the masculine wand. And he brings a lot of esoteric symbolism into it in his book. as to what that might mean. But you've got to come up with your own thought. That form is also, well, these are more like yods. But in the majors, like the sun and the moon, see if I can find one of those. Here we go. That form is all through the sky. Now, to me, it looks like the moon is sucking something up from the earth. Or it could be said that it's shedding its beams down, and the dogs are eating them. What kind of interpretation could you come upon out of that? And I've definitely come up with interpretations for that in the past, but they're based on the situation that I'm reading on. They're based on the circumstances, and they have no meaning outside of that. So if I'm looking at the cards in a spread, they make sense within that. They may have been something in the previous card that transformed in the current card. A lot of times we look for transformation across the cards. Something turns into something else. You'll have the two neophytes in the Hierophant card, the two little guys who are down at his feet receiving the teaching, and the next card is the moon. The two neophytes have turned into the dogs. The next card is the Chariot, which is being pulled by two horses. They've gone from being neophytes to dogs to horses. What's going on in that circumstance? What are those things that keep changing? What are those things that receive a teaching, gobble down the force of the moon in that teaching, and then become a motive force that drives your chariot? Just one way of pulling that out of my brain right now. But so I don't know if I'm answering your question. I'm deliberately avoiding answering your question by saying, I don't know. What is that form? What is that shape? What does it mean to you today? Could be a teardrop, could be a wound, could be a drop of blood coming from the side of Christ. There's so many different possibilities for that shape. That shape is related to the shape I showed you of the unfurling sort of snail shell as well. And I think that it belongs in this shape in the lemniscate. And I could write a book about the lemniscate. As a matter of fact, you see the, I wish I could get my own picture large here so I could see what I don't know how that works. You see that other little leaf? That's right here. Well, there's that shape again. You can probably find it elsewhere in the card too. And why does it get used over and over and over again in so many different... Did they just like drawing that shape? Maybe. I used to doodle. I used to be in customer service, and I'd be on the phones all day long, and I would doodle on my little pad, and I would draw scrolls all the time. Turns out it was this shape from the TDM that I wasn't thinking of at that time, but it turns out that it's that same shape. So what are these shapes? Why do they get used over and over again? And it's fun to do the work of looking at the TDM and getting used to its abstraction and finding what can grow out of it, because it unlocks you from the systems, which are so confining. And gets you into a freer sort of space where things can grow and things can transform. And we don't say the same things about the same cards over and over and over and over and over again, hoping that in saying we'll come across the meaning. Any other questions?
I have a question, which is apparently directly opposed to what you just said, but I'm still going to ask it. Do you use any particular numerology system?
The word cut out right when you said, right before system, do I use any particular?
Numerology.
Well, I know Kabbalistic numerology best, I think, but also what would be called Pythagorean, and sort of work to connect those two and see how they're the same and how they're different. But whichever clicks for me first, if I'm looking at the cards and I'm like, I can't figure out the visual, then I go to my first ditch system, which might be the number. And so you can look to the trump card. That's one. But it's good to understand why is the Hierophant 5? Why is the High Priestess 2 and not 3? Why is, and what of, instead of 5, what of 15? Because that's the 5 in the second loop of the lemniscate. There's the 5 and there's the 1-5, and that's the devil, which is the shadow of the Hierophant. The devil is the shadow of the Pope, as it were. And what of that? Perhaps you could call one you could call the 5 the Hierophant, and the devil is the reversed Hierophant. Perhaps. So that's one. Another way is Pythagorean. 5 is change. 5 is the microcosm. But even that's pretty esoteric. 5 is change. 5 is difficult because change is difficult, and change is work, and change disrupts things. Turns out that's the same in Kabbalistic. So whatever numerological system works for you, you can use that. Just, use that as a go-to, but don't go to it right away. Because the 3 showing up in a reading doesn't have to be any different than the 6 showing up in a reading. It's still, look at the image. Look at, is it emphatic? Is it a lot of, or is it just a few? Is it light, flowery? Does it have room for growth? Or is it like intense and in your face? Is it a lot of, or is it a little? Because in the reading, it doesn't matter if it's a 4 or a 5 or a 6 or an 8, unless it matters. And then go to your number and pull your number and look at your number. Did I answer your question?
Yes. Frankly, for me, kind of what you're doing is Kabbalistic proofs, which annoy me. I hate them for other reasons. But I can understand how that would work. I was just curious what or if you used any.
I do, and I will look at the number when the picture isn't making sense. Anything else that I can plug in that starts adding some meaning to it and gets the thing spinning. A lot of times a reading, at first, it's like a little package that's closed. You know, those either like the present that you get that's hard to open, or the Amazon shipment that you get that's hard to open. And you look at it and you look all around at it and you look around at it and you look around at it and you finally find this little thing sticking out that you can grab hold of. And you start pulling it, and it pulls back and it pulls back and it pulls back. And all of a sudden it starts unfurling and unrolling and opening up. And pretty soon you got plop, there's the whole reading. So it's about sticking with the images until you find that little tabby sticking out that you can pull on, and the whole sweater just unravels. And that's what it's like. Every little reading that you do, little 3-card reading with TDM, is like a little secret hidden present that unrolls and it's like, whoa, where did that come from? You know, it came from all your years of studying it and looking at all these things, which improved your intuition. It also comes from just seeing. And that's the thing. These things, images, can go by us so fast without seeing all the things that are in the card. Oh, their ears look just like the things that are coming down out of the sky. What the heck? What's that about? I don't know. Make something up. What you make up is really good. And that can be done with any deck. It doesn't have to be TDM, but TDM will train you to be able to do that because there's nothing else to go on. Anything else? Bueller?
You mentioned at the beginning that readings are kind of not like the main thing that you do with the cards. Do you have kind of a process, or how do you describe the main work that you do?
It comes of looking at the cards, like, for example, the layout I do with the majors in the lemniscate, or laying the cards out in the 8-pronged wheel, or a lemniscate you can take 2 suits, take the quartz out, just use the pips, lay those out in the lemniscate out of 2 suits, because it's the same number. It's 20 cards that get laid out in the same 20 that the majors do.
So do the 2 10s cross then?
Depends on how you lay them out, just like how you lay out the majors. When you lay out the majors, you can pull out the Fool and the World, because it's 20 and 2. And the Fool has no number. He's not even 0. In the TDM, he's not even 0. He's just no number. And then there's 21, which is outside of the cycle of 1 to 10 or 10 to 20. And so you've got the Fool and the World. They lie outside the lemniscate or in the loops. And then you have this lemniscate that crosses in the center. So you can also take 1 to 10 and then lay them out and play with it. Play with where they cross. Or they could just be 2 concentric or 2 circles that touch each other. at various points. Play with it that way. This is what I do is looking at cards in those formats, or not asking a question, but playing a game. Because it's, after all, it's a card game, right? It's to be played with, like solitaire. Laying out the cards, doing what would be a reading, for example, but no question. Just make up a story, boom, and then move on to the next one. And we were doing this the other day. You just lay down 2 cards side by side and tell the story. And try to do it in, flash read it. Try the first thing that comes to your mind, no matter how ridiculous or stupid or insightful or silly or weird or whatever, just see it and say it, and then lay out 2 more. And then see it and say it and lay out 2 more. See it and say it and lay out 2 more. Like that. So you get the practice of doing it and doing it fast and being concise. So that the reading is not this laborious process of going over, well, the 9 can mean the foundation. The 9 can mean the mechanics of the universe. The 9 can mean the moon. Well, what does it mean in this case? Well, it, depends, Instead, you see the 9. I'm doing it here in front of me right now. I suppose I can hold it up for you. Let's see. I'm going to pull 2, and I'm going to see if I can give you an example. Just pulling 2 out of the middle somewhere. We'll hold them up and see what I get. She's feeling blocked, so she decides to journal about it. So that was the 7 of Wands. Is the 7 of Wands about being blocked? Sure. Because here it is. However, notice that she's facing away. I haven't talked about that yet, the directions that people are facing. She's looking away from the 7 of Wands here. But she's got a wand. So she's got some command over the wands, even though they're unconscious. That's one way I could interpret it. It's like she's got this mental blockage, writer's block. Aha. She got writer's block, but she's trying to do it anyway. She doesn't even have a book. She's writing on her knee. Come from Alabama with a baton on my knee. Okay, so that's that. Then we move on to 2 more. I'm going to pull 2 more. Aha. The Queen's writing project finally paid off, and she was able to write a very simple 2-line couplet. The stories don't usually connect from pair to pair. Aha. Let's see. Because he found the Holy Grail, he was able to rise again the very next morning. Now go to sleep, kid. All right. The king also tried to write on a daily basis. He would pick up his very giant pen and he would try to write, but his mind was just too busy with affairs of war. So these stories, I mean, it's not a reading, right? Because I haven't asked a question. But it is reading because I'm reading a story of visual pictures. And Another cool way to do, and this is actually works great for readings. Maybe I should turn on my other camera so I can show you this on my table. Okay, so what you do, probably everybody has done a 3-card majors only reading in their day at one time or another. The 3-card majors only reading is a huge tradition in TDM land. Basically, the whole world uses the TDM cards except England and America. Everybody else uses TDM cards in the world. And most of them do majors only readings, like a lot of the time. So there is this big tradition within TDM. You'll see it in a lot of TDM books, including Camilla Elias's book, Anne Hodorovsky's book. The tradition of doing 3-card spreads with majors only. My first reading ever was a 3-card spread, majors only. But what you do here, if you want to get some minors into the reading, is you start with your first position and you're going to flip cards up until you come to a major. So you end up with a little stack unless a major is the first card. Okay, so we're going to do that. Okay, got a major on the first try. So is that upside down to you guys? Because it's upside down to me.
Yes, yeah, it's upside down.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, got a major on the first try. Let's see what we get on the next one. Okay, so minor, major. Okay, so we're going to stop that stack there, and then minor, 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 major. Okay, so if you don't do reversals, then just turn him over. Okay, so now you got 3 majors that you can do a majors only reading with. Direction counts. Okay, this guy is looking away from this guy and this guy. These guys are sort of in agreement, and look how in agreement they are. Look at their posture. Their posture is exactly the same. This guy is the inside of this guy. Okay, and they are, what are they doing? Well, they are leaving this guy. So they've had a disagreement. This guy's disagreement goes to the bone. This guy's disagreement is like bone deep. He is so convinced that he's right that he is stalking away from this guy. Okay, this guy is just like, well, he's occupied with something that's going on over here because he's looking over here. There's nothing there. So what are we going to do? We're going to find out what he's looking at. Okay, so I'm going to move my table over this. What is he looking at? Oh, okay. He's looking at the 10 of Swords. All right, which is, what is that? Well, we could, when something is over here, it's either we can say it's in the past or we can say it's unconscious, but he's looking at it. So he's conscious of it. It's maybe it's worry. He's really wrapped up in his worry, and he's thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it and thinking about it. He's wrapped up in his worry, while this guy, who he's supposed to be entertaining at his, he's assuming that this fool guy is watching his show, but he's not paying attention. He's like disconnected from his show, and this guy is walking away. He's lost interest, and he is so disgusted. He's disgusted to the bone. All right, now it's like, okay, well, I want more information. Well, we don't get more information on these, but in these cases we do. Okay, why is this guy so disgusted to the bone? Well, let's find out more about him. Okay, he's got some push-pull going on. What I'm seeing is this is an interlocked triangle. Okay, sort of like the Star of David. So he's got some push-pull going on in his finances, and so he's got some financial troubles. going on. Then this card, this skeleton, well, it's got a ton of backstory to it. He's got a lot of baggage. And when you got a lot of baggage and a lot of these minor cards, which are so hard to read, basically you can look for trends. So I'm going to move these off camera so that you can see what's here. And real quick, can you see all of them? What trends do we see? Okay, well, how many swords are there? There's 2 swords, 3 swords, 2 cups, 2 wands, and a coins card. Okay, so we could say that the overplus here is swords, which is why the fool is so like disgusted with the magician, because the magician had all those swords on his mind, and the fool was like more kind of down to earth than that. And so he stalked away, and in his closet, the skeleton in his closet was these swords in his past. He's got all these swords in his baggage that he's carrying, maybe in his pouch on his back. He's carrying all those swords, and that's he doesn't trust words too much. He doesn't trust verbose people like me, and he's got some balance going on with these, and then very little money. And as I said, he's got push-pull with his money going on, and so he's off to seek more money than what he's got. So a little bit lame, you know, but that's what I got from that reading. But that gives a place for the minors to come into the reading without interfering with the majors only, which is visually easier to play with and easier to read. And these just give more backup. And you can treat them in a very cursory fashion. Matter of fact, the more cursory, the better, because the quicker you look at them and see the connections, you could also look for, you know, do we have an overplus of number? You know, are there a lot of 6s? Here's 2 6s. There's 3 6s. Actually, he was in this stack, wasn't he? But you maybe could play with that. Here's 2 6s. There's a 7, 2, 3 royals. So you could play with them that way. You could see if there was any like increase or transformation across them to get some general information about this skeleton that the fool has in his system. So both these guys had some skeletons in their closet. The one guy had too much pain and angst and perhaps too many esoteric systems in his esoteric left-hand closet. And this guy had skeletons in his closet, and they turned out to be an aversion to systems, an aversion to things that are too wordy and too organized. So that did we have a question? We didn't have a question, but that was just showing how a 3-card reading can come about and still have more cards in it. You know what we didn't look at? I forgot to do. Where's that skeleton going? What are the fool and the skeleton walking off to see? This guy was looking back at his 10 of swords over here. These guys are moving towards something. What are they going to see? Let's find out, shall we? Financial security. This is a good one. Very typically, fours are about stability and security. They are the four safe corners in which this safety can happen. So before, you remember when I turned up the six of coins, and I said, financial stability is like something that he's got some push-pull in his finance, and he wants more stability. There it is. So that's what they're going off for. They're going off for more. This guy's two in his head. They're going off for more entertainment from somebody who's more grounded and more like kind of down to earth and just does things practically. And I'm sure you guys all see something different than what I'm seeing. With pips, a lot of times time unfolds from the bottom to the top. So the root of the story can be here. Here are two people who come together in an amicable relationship, might be love, might be a business partnership, and they spawn, they get together and they spawn this third thing, okay? But the third thing is, while the third thing is very loved by the first two, it also blooms and gets into this relationship or has this relationship with these two other folks who are hidden by these leaves. I can't see my own picture, so when I'm holding it up, I can't really see it very well. They're hidden by those two big leaves from the other two that are below. So it's all about relationships, because cups are about relationships and love, and toasting other people and society and everything like that. But it starts with these two. They birth the one. You see how it's like a heart that comes up around it? So they love this. Maybe it's a child. But the child then gets involved, falls among thieves or falls among leaves. and gets involved. This might be the child. It might be two other people that the child gets involved with. But then those two appear to be like invisible to these two. So what is that? That could become a story. And then what is this big egg-like thing in between them? And notice how it is like, it's like a ripening of this down here. So these might be the same two as these, but there's more connection between them because of their love for this third child or the business that they create together or something like that.
So the egg shape thing could be kind of the fruit of the two people's labors over time, or I don't know.
However you choose to interpret it, but there's been a transformation across the face of the card. And we see that more or less. Sometimes everything starts in the middle. And here is, you've got this 5 situation, which looks like security here. Here's a secure group of people with security in the middle, and here's a secure group of people. But these two groups, like if each one was like let's say each one was a household, and they form an alliance, and that alliance allows this to grow and to bloom. Now, 10, I didn't ever go to the number 10 to interpret the card. I just made up a story about the abstraction that I saw in the leaves, which was of course formed. What's interesting is that across there's different TDMs that came out over like a 300-year period, and the leaves are always the same. They're the layout. It's like tradition. We use this pattern on this card, and it's not universal. And each one has been redrawn by a new artist, but it's still the same sort of, layout, which makes you go, okay, is there something in that? Is there something that is meant to be communicated by these stories and these forms in these cards? And that's why it's interesting to compare these old decks, either online or to acquire them and spend time looking at them, and just compare them visually as to what transfers from region of Europe, because they were printed in different regions, different eras. We know, okay, this one was from 1650, this one from 1701, this one from 1760, this one from, and over time, to look at how they're transformed and how they transformed in relation to the history that was going on in the world in those places in those times. The availability of like the Corpus Hermeticum, the Hermetic texts that were translated, and when they were translated, and where they were translated, and how they may or may not have found themselves being encoded into some of the images. Or was it just a card game? And pondering these things. Speaking of stories and storytelling, the cards have their own story and the story that they're trying to tell us.
Okay, cool. I think that's our session today. How do you like it?
This was fun.
Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, very much. I really enjoyed this. Is the first time working with this deck, so this was great.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Hal.
Yes, thanks, Hal.
Thank
It was
you.
great. Thanks, bunches. Have a good weekend, everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.
See you next time. Bye.